Hello, and welcome to Khyber Shards, a 5th edition actual play show set in the Eberron campaign world. It being Friday, this is another Khyber Shards Answers, and today we are joined by Casey and R.A., who have been playing not primarily Esri and Shade for the last session, or last episode and a half, I guess, as they have taken on the roles of Locknitu and Drea, which is the subject of most of the questions that we got for them. So our most recent episode, there's not a huge amount of narrative to talk about because it was primarily a gigantic, highly convoluted combat encounter. That's what happens when I spend several weeks designing a combat encounter. It becomes, oh, and what if they're fighting up and down a big tower? And what if there's a wyvern on top of it? That's what happens.
It is awesome, is what it is.
Questions.
More complicated.
You know, every time Philip says it's Friday, he's lying. It's never Friday.
It's true. I'm speaking into the future.
Yeah. It's just disappointing, you know. It's like
At the time he says it,
Because you get excited about the concept of Friday, and then it's not.
Hey, it's not.
No.
other days are great too.
I mean, it's almost Friday. It's close to Friday, you know. It's not that bad. All right. Let me ask this, because this was not asked, and I'm curious. Both of you settled on characters you had played in other campaigns, where I am not the DM. Were there any other characters you had considered, or when I brought up the possibility of gladiators, it was immediately, oh, I want to be Locknitu, I want to be Drea?
I mean, Locknitu is such a natural fit for that environment. So, I mean, I ran through my stable of like players I have that I've not players, characters that I haven't like played to end game essentially. Because I considered bringing the monk, but it would be real hard going from level 18 back down to level 4. Like, I'm not even sure I would know how to play him. So, yeah, no, Locknitu is a real natural fit for a gladiatorial environment.
I thought about including a monk, and then I thought, wait, can't monks just run straight up vertical surfaces?
Not at level 4, I think.
Okay. I didn't remember what level that was in, and so I thought, just not put a monk in there. Well, what about you, Kissy?
I did not. In fact, you had offered to propose a couple of different options, and one of them was very, very appealing. Swashbuckling tiefling, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, you almost played Deimos.
It was very tempting. But I definitely get in my head about the character choices rather than just the min-max options. And so I decided to go with a character that would make character choices. And although Drea wasn't an obvious choice, she was much more than the other one I was thinking about, which was Vita, who is a pacifist dragonborn. So it would have just been a whole lot more to try to figure out why she was
Dragonborn fighter.
She is. It would have fit very, very well skill-wise.
Mm-hmm.
But character-wise, less so. Andrea's always up for anything, so it was an easy way to convince myself that she would participate.
So this wasn't in the episode that was just dropped, but it was in the first one where we were introducing these characters. You presented, like, this just was a total curveball to me. You presented the notion that Drea thought this was mandatory. Like, that Drea thought this was something that everyone had to do when you were in Stormreach. Where did that come from?
It's like someone said, oh, everyone does it.
Correct. Mandatory, not in the sense of you have to do this, but she's a tourist. She's an observer. And so when you go to Stormreach, she was told that this was something you have to do. So, of course, she was going to sign up and do it.
Introducing Drea into the world had my head running around just because it can't not. Okay, well, where would this character have come from in Eberron? And with his most recent, very large book, Keith Baker did a whole bunch of stuff of what's the world like under the Thunder Sea, which is the sea between Corvair and Zendrick, and details all of the like kingdoms and nations that exist underneath the Thunder Sea, and the politics thereof. And so it was like, oh, where would and none of them sound great for Drea. It's not it's kind of like aquatic Game of Thrones down there. So none of them exactly sound like places where Drea would thrive, but I am interested that interests me. Where would someone like Drea come from in Eberron? And I don't know that I came up with a good answer.
Now I'm curious. I'm gonna have to go and read through them.
Yeah. But Loch-Nitu's easy because we've introduced that there are lots of Goliaths around Zendrick, even though I didn't ask you guys to come up with a background because why?
Yeah, and by nature he's a traveler. This is what he does. He goes around and looks for ways to like be praised. Like, what are the most exciting visible things he can do?
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, well, we have some questions. We'll start with one from Richard, because it seems like a perfectly good introductory one. Richard would like to know, how much fun were Loch-Nitu and Drea to play? We can see that the pair of them when can we see the pair of them together in a one-shot? So
Loch-Nitu's a lot.
How did they play in this scenario? Like, I've seen you play them in a very, very different scenario, but how did they feel in this scenario?
Loch-Nitu's a lot of fun to play. The concept behind him for me is, as you know, what is a character that I would normally not pick? Like what character or what build would I not do? Loch-Nitu is that. So Paladin's like fourth from the bottom on like classes I want to play generally. Bard being the absolute.
What's dead last?
Bard, yeah. I think Bard should be deleted from the game. Sorry, that threw me off my train of thought. Anyway, so he is uncomplicated. He has a straightforward motivation, and a straightforward set of morals, and so he's very much like he's very much about his god, and he's very much about winning glory, and really everything else is secondary to that. Everything. I usually build much more damaged and complex and subtle characters. So he's just like, what is the crazy at any given point? What is like the biggest thing I can do? That's how he plays. So it's fun. You have to be pretty up all the time though. Like he's always energy, which is very much not me. So.
Yeah. It was, I expressed this last time. I was not ready for how up energy you were going to be. Like, even knowing you were going to be playing Loch-Nitu, I was not braced for how up energy. The introductory, like, boast thing was wonderful.
So good.
I loved that.
Loch-Nitu was perfect for that setting. It was a great play. I feel like I did.
How did Drea feel?
I feel like I did Drea dirty.
You got really unlucky.
She is such a fun character. I love playing with her. And she has these cool abilities. The whole Star Druid where she, gets to do the archer thing and it looks awesome. And everything cool I tried just failed so hard. And so I just felt really Yes, I just felt I played her a little lame. She had some really cool things that I could have done or could have done sooner. And I think she fit well in that space. Drea is up for anything all the time, and she isn't big and showy and glory seeking in the way that Lockney2 is, but she's up for having fun. And if that means punching somebody else in the face, let's do it. But she didn't really successfully do any of that.
There was a lot of near misses on big swings throughout for all the characters in this. I was really excited and really sad that it didn't work. The just initial out the gate, can I leap off of Kolos? Like that was beautiful. I loved it, and I was sad when it didn't work out.
Same. And it just went down from there.
Not that Kolos had a great day. Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see to determine what the repercussions of that are. But yeah, as to when we can see a one shot with the pair of them together, I don't know. That's my answer.
It would be fun.
Get us 1,000 views on a video and we'll talk.
Oh, just throwing that out there.
Well, all right then. Here we go. All right. Moving forward. Richard had a different question. Is Esri getting adjusted to the fact that he hears dead people all the time? And, less seriously, I think, will he start a side gig as a psychic who can talk to the dead?
Actually, the second part, potentially. If there's steady money in that, that's potentially. No, he's not used to it or adjusted to it. It doesn't happen all the time. It happens sometimes, and it's always or mostly unexpected. The Red Ring was is a little different because there's a lot more dead bodies there. So no, it's still fairly. It's still weird. He doesn't know what to do with it yet. He doesn't know how to control it yet, and so that he's not going to get adjusted to it till he can control it. That's yeah. It's like I don't know, like some sort of nagging pain, right? That just pops up every now and then. It might not ruin your day, but it's still annoying and just uncomfortable when it happens. So I'm absolutely certain that will be explored. But yeah, no, not.
If you can ever get that bus to talk to you again.
Oh, I mean, yeah. Neither I nor Esri think there's going to be any problem with that. When
deep source of information, I will insult it deeply.
Yeah, but when you're just a statue, you don't have a ton of leverage, especially when you
That's
you
true.
may have information I want to know, but you don't have any information I at the moment have to know. So he's got some thoughts. I guess at the moment he doesn't know it's not talking to him. You've intimated as much, but he hasn't tried to hold a conversation with it yet.
Mia asks, I know that RA and Casey have gamed together a lot, but I'm wondering if it's ever difficult to draw a line between in-game and real life. Like, in either direction, do conflicts come up in the game that bleed into real life, or vice versa?
Oh, I'm going to get to start the conflict one over? Yes.
Well, I'm not.
Touche. As a person, I don't like conflict. And so there was this moment where as a player, I distinctly remember the first time we sort of had conflict in game, and raised our voices to each other. Not RA and I, but Regina and I. There was a conflict in which Regina, one of our friends who is also a new player to role-playing, and our characters butted heads, and afterwards both of us were immediately like, now, I'm not mad at you, right? That this is just our characters. And so I say that to say I try not to let out of game conflicts convolute in-game relationships, and in-game conflicts intervene with in real world relationships. But I'm a pretty emotional person, and so I am sure that I have failed at that. I am sure that tension from being tired or hungry or upset about something, I cannot think of a specific moment, so I don't think I've done it with like absolutely terribly and constantly. But I'm sure it's happened before. I am probably quicker to insult RA in game than I am other players. Just our level of comfort. We tend to banter back and forth anyways as part of our relationship, and so I think even in game, that's who Shade was most comfortable poking fun at first. And I think somebody in the comments, either at the watch party or in the YouTube comments, said something, hey, was that Casey to RA or was that Shade to Esri? And that's probably a valid question.
I would say that I don't think in-game conflict has ever, like character conflict has ever caused any real out of game conflict. I think it does happen where playing together can cause conflict, not because our characters are in conflict, but because of something that the other person did at the table. It was a legitimate person-to-person conflict. I think it's very easy. Is it very? Yeah, I think it's pretty easy in a bit of play like this to just smash all over somebody's fun. You really can poison a table intentionally or unintentionally by there's lots of ways you can ignore something somebody does, or you can't basically it's not yes anding, right? Someone says, I'm gonna go look over this cliff and see what's there quietly, and then you say I'm gonna do the same thing, or you go and jump off the cliff, or sometimes that's in character, and so it's delicate, right? But it's pretty easy to play in an unthoughtful way, because it's just being unthoughtful. So you really have to monitor that, and it's happened several times that. I'm not going to talk about any particular instances because I'm not even sure I remember specific ones, but I do remember it happening. That look, you did this, and that that shut down everything I was trying to do there, and I didn't think that was necessary to do, kind of thing.
Yeah, that is tricky to manage just in any kind of gaming. I'm sorry, it was just Vash's tail
really
just went by just at eye level.
Any groaning that you hear off camera, he has lots of sighs and groans to communicate that he would like to go on a walk now. Please, thank you.
Yeah, that can be tricky to manage, and I've definitely encountered getting after and feeling annoyed with the way someone played a character, and there is definitely a delicacy to that.
That is a huge benefit to having played so many games together too, is that we often talk about sort of our expectations or gaming philosophies of what each other's role is at the table, to the other players, to the DM. And for me, it's made me a lot more aware as a player of what my role is, and what it can be in the fun of others, how that can positively or negatively affect just the fun.
We also get the benefit of just being able to talk
Yeah.
about how a session went immediately afterwards and say like, hey, when I did this, did it come across to you in this way? Or did you catch that I was trying to do this? And how do you think this came across the table? And so you get to kind of postmortem.
He gets a lot of, hey, so I think this is a viable character choice, and here's my reasoning. Is that logical? And I appreciate that opportunity to talk out those choices and reactions and see how they came across versus how they were intended, and then be able to recover later.
Cool. Well, we got 2 questions from Auspicious Angel. First one is, I was curious what it was like for Ari and Casey to revisit old characters now that they've been investing so heavily in their new ones and in their situation.
Well, there's an assumption in the question that's not quite accurate. These are not terribly old characters. And we're always playing a few campaigns at the same time. So it's not really a stretch because we're constantly having to bounce. I mean, we probably play on average 1.5 characters a week, something like that. Yeah, in that sense, it's not.
We do play a lot of RPGs.
And other games as well. And so
Yeah.
it wasn't very much like revisiting old characters. It was bringing a character into a different setting. Like Nitu was invented in Galarian, the Pathfinder world, I believe. If that's correct. And so had to pick a different god, but yeah, it was he like I say, he's uncomplicated, so he's the same everywhere. But it's the first time I think I've like I'm trying to remember if this is true exactly, but it's like the first time I've cross-pollinated characters.
Would you
Might be,
not consider your monk from?
No, because that was just a continuation of the same campaign. Like we changed systems, but it was the same setting.
Got it.
And it was
Yeah.
a different campaign, but I narratively made it as though it was a continuation of his story, even though he went down in power level because we started earlier. So.
Yeah. Casey?
I'm really enjoying getting to know Drea, and so to be able to play her in a different setting was a lot of fun. I think for me, one of the hardest parts was Drea and Lockney 2 are from the same campaign. And I think the way that they play off of each other, which they're both socially inept, just absolutely terrible in social situations. And I find that hilarious. And so for me, one of the hardest parts was not playing like Drea had known Lockney 2. And we had talked whether or not to do that.
Yeah, there was potential that they had been traveling together. And so they came into this knowing, but we decided against it.
Yeah, it's not their story. And so I didn't want that to be end up taking away from Gladiator games. Get to that and let's have fun.
You did play her her social ineptitude. Like her flavor of social ineptitude is really nice, or is really funny, because it's Nitu's is just like wall. Like he doesn't really even care about social cues. Like he doesn't.
Right.
That's not why he's there. But Drea is funny because she's just completely wrong about how she interprets most things, because what she brings to things culturally is just completely backwards from what everyone else does. And so all of these assumptions, all of these things she observes, just they manifest incorrectly, and I find that quite funny.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. And then the other question that from Angel is, the other question was more hypothetical. How do you think the current adventure would have gone differently if Drea and Lochnitu were your characters? So I think the question is, how would Khyber Shards be different if you had decided to play Lochnitu and Drea as your aberrants?
I mean, I'm not sure you could.
Many ways.
Yeah, at no point would Lochnitu ever have considered hiding his mark, or no, he would be just strutting down the streets, showing off as much as possible. I mean, it's that you can't really get too much further away from Esri, I don't think, than Lochnitu.
Lochnitu's mark is the most aberrant of all.
Yeah, I mean, he'd be just like going around trying to find all of them, and like I'm trying to even think of an analogy. I mean, I guess in some way he's Colossus, but he's not nearly as intelligent as Colossus. But yeah, no, I mean, it's hard to even speculate. It wouldn't be even sort of remotely the same with Lochnitu.
Yeah.
I thought that as different as Drea and Shade are from each other, that there would definitely be some overlaps, because I think that Harish and Solarka would still be friends with Drea for the same reason that they're friends with Shade. They're the ones who have the patience for her. She doesn't enjoy people, and interacting is difficult, but Harish and Solarka are the ones who are willing to painfully make it through the conversations. And Drea loves people as much as Shade hates them. But in her overzealousness to know about them, is also a painful conversationalist. She will just pry into every personal detail, ask as many questions as you will allow her. And I think that most of the people in this particular town don't want to share that information. And I think that Solarka and Harish would be the ones that have the patience, or at least the willingness to be like, nope, see, that was too personal. Pull back.
Yeah.
But between the two of them, if the two of them replaced Esri and Shade, the entirety of the city would know exactly who they are completely. Like,
Yes.
It would, and Lochnitu would want it that way at least, and Drea at least wouldn't care.
Right.
At minimum wouldn't care, but might also, she wants to be friends with everyone, so yeah, that's fine too. It would tilt the balance from like a mostly introverted party to like the town jesters.
Yeah. I think that. Yeah,
it
absolutely.
would be a massive change.
All right. Then we have a couple questions from Laura.
Nor would I have ever brought a character like Lochnitu to something like this. It's the nuance isn't deep enough for this. He's a
Yes, sir?
he's a sword and sorcery character.
Yeah.
And he's built for that. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. So Laura asks,
I would bring Drea. I think she's fun.
for everyone, what is your favorite PC you've ever played? And I will, just for simplicity's sake, I will add, aside from your current Khyber Shards characters, just so set those aside for a minute. What is your favorite PC you have ever played?
I don't know if mine is truly my favorite or if it's just sentimental, but Alini is the first character that I played, and
Ripolini.
and she is.
That's who you should have brought.
Dog-mounted halfling paladin.
No, that
no.
was who I made to replace
that
Alini when
replaced
she was
Alini.
brutally
Yeah,
murdered.
Alini was a bard?
A bard, a gnome bard.
Okay.
And she just probably all of my characters are loosely based on Alini. Alini was
Well, all of your characters are loosely based on Embreka.
that's true.
Alini
That's
was
true.
your first attempt to recreate Embreka.
Her, yes. And so she's the impulsive character that gets into trouble that I enjoy playing. And I was referencing this on the Discord yesterday. Alini walks into an underground cavern, sees a clearly magical fountain, and walks right up and drinks out of it. That's not...
That's not a hypothetical.
Yeah,
Right,
no, that
That
happened.
was our first adventure together.
It was so much fun. She's just absolutely who I really enjoy that character. And then also just the guilt trip that I get to send you on, Philip, every time I bring her up is just, an added bonus.
First character played, first character killed.
Yep.
Yep.
No, that was like we were playing Pathfinder at the time, and for those of you that haven't played Pathfinder, it's actually really hard to bleed out in Pathfinder. Like when you get to 0 hit points, you begin to bleed out, but it's actually really hard to just die ambiently if something doesn't come along and kill you. But it happened. Like we got stuck, and the dice were all against them. Like it was just.
I'm that good at rolling.
First time we split the party too.
It's true. It did not go well. How about you, RA?
Similarly, the same character we started with. It's not a fair question because I played Alarian for years.
Yeah.
And he's probably, because a lot of people do this, I assume, but like he was my first character, so he was like the prototype character. Right? He's everything I wanted in a character at the time, and I threw all that into him. I'd actually suggest not doing that to new players, but it ended up okay. So accepting the one character I've unequivocally played the longest, Thrush comes to mind. My first One Ring character.
Barra was so good.
I really liked Thrush. I thought I had a really good handle on who Thrush was.
Yeah.
And took where his story went, and
He was so good. You did such a good job with him. He had a beautiful story.
Still does.
and of course a lot of that's luck.
That's true.
Yeah, he's not dead as far as I know yet.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't have dead characters.
Ouch. I have so many.
I have one, but
I found it a
Another
hard
example of
question.
just the dice turned against us on that.
yeah, that
yeah.
was at least a real choice though,
Yeah.
that I made. I mean, the dice went against it, but I made a choice to go into danger alone, so it was always
Yeah.
a known possibility.
Yeah.
And we're far longer a long time. I'm gonna start that sentence over again. We were further along in our RPG experience at that point, so
That's true. I was really worried after
the
the
idea
party
of a
wipe
character dying was not.
with the first party where everyone went down, and I was like, oh my gosh, we're like 4 sessions in or something.
It was such a lame encounter too.
It
It was
was.
just like a bandit camp.
Yeah, it wasn't important. It wasn't a big thing. It was just low-level characters being squishy, and man, it just went so upside down. I know all the ways that I would have done it, that I could do it better now. It's just, yeah, that went so bad.
Because I was playing back my answer in my mind, and this will probably leave somebody going, but you didn't. Thrush was a woodsman. He was a guy who liked being out in the woods by himself. He was called Thrush because he talked to birds, thrushes, and like he was very good with animals. And his whole journey was just becoming a sort of folk hero of the woodsmen with a named ancestral axe from the woodmen he reclaimed, and he sort of became an area chieftain kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, he's a player in the Anduin Vale. He's a power player. Yeah. Mine.
I don't know.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I don't know what.
Do you play?
I do. It's really hard to answer this because I have played quite a lot of characters. I haven't played a lot of characters for a really extended period of time. There's only a few characters that I've played for an extended period, and those characters I played for a really extended period. So, you know, my first long-term character, who ended up with the name Jack, was who was a spy for Breland that we were playing in Eberron, and ended up kind of becoming ended up briefly a Stormlord after a catastrophe in Stormage. They got one of the Stormlords killed, and ended up as essentially Eberron's Nick Fury, which was a delightful thing. I think it was the perfect. It was cool because I got to see his whole story and come to a satisfying conclusion. And then, of course, I played Barrack on Eberron Renewed for so long. I've now played Eris on Eberron Renewed for so long. And then I played Mazer, my giant wolf man guns dude. Like he's the Jane of that party, the Jane Cobb of that party, or the Amos. What's Amos in the Expanse's last name?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, it's not his real name.
If you've seen The Expanse and I say Amos, you know who
Yes.
I'm talking about, so that's not really necessary, is it?
Oh, spoiler alert. Ugh. Sorry.
Oh, I didn't even hear what you
I
said.
spoiled a minor point.
Oh. So, yeah, I mean, he's Amos,
watch
he's
it,
James.
though.
So
Read it.
he's a really simple character, or he's a very
He's so
uncomplicated
awesome,
character. But he is enormously fun, and I think the most fun is I began him as illiterate because his actual background has been revealed in that campaign. Is that he's a Rocket Raccoon style experiment, that he was just a wolf who was turned into this. And so I started with him as illiterate, and we gradually worked up his literacy a little bit at a time. But I think I know for a fact that Mazer has gotten the biggest laugh of any character I've ever played, because he was faking that he could read for a really long time because he didn't want anyone to figure out what he was. And someone mentioned that something was italicized, and Mazer, in an attempt to pretend to read, sort of looked over the shoulder and goes, "Oh, yeah, those are the italicize." And that became it became a thing, and it just where he assumed that it was an expression that people made. Italicize was an expression that people made, and I just remember that it was delightful. So that was a really fun, easy character to play. I never felt like he had a lot of weight on me when I was playing him. The story didn't rely on him as, say, my character in Eberron Renewed. In the case of Barrack, and that was really nice, especially at the time because I was playing them about the same time, and I liked that. So he had a little bit of depth to him, but it was mostly fun to just be really good at killing things, and not really have to worry about the rest of it. Let the rest of the party handle all the social. So I would say
it's really different to balance encounters around Mazer and the group, like, because it's also a system thing, but like really you could take out a room of the biggest threats potentially I could throw at him, like if you get a little lucky.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you know, he can drop It's also pretty easy to drop him if you hit him. Like I mean, anyone in that system really, but he's like the most literal tank that has ever been played.
Yeah. So Mazer may be the character I've had the most raw fun playing, because it's so easy to be him. It's just so easy to slip into that and be him, because he's going to agree with whatever Casey's character says, because Casey's character is the alpha of the group in his mind, and his goal, his solution to all problems is to smash them, and that's really easy to play, and he's fun. But I would say probably Eris, my current Eberron Renewed character, is my favorite PC character overall, because I really like the story that she's got going, and I really like playing an artificer. I didn't know how much I liked playing gadgety characters, but I apparently really like playing gadgety characters. So being able to build stuff with a character, because Genesis actually has a good crafting system, is a lot of fun for me.
Two things. Have you ever mentioned like the true like genesis of some of your characters, such as Mazer?
True genesis of some of my do you mean
where they like? I mean that you had a mini.
Oh yes, that is true. A lot of my characters I have a mini. Yeah, I think I mentioned that before. I do have a tendency to, especially with her games where we're going to play in person, because I really get deep into trying to get the mini to look just right, which is why in our home game, Casey still doesn't have a miniature, because I haven't found a mini that just looks just right. And it really bothers me, and I'm like the only person at the table who's obsessive about it, but I'm really deep into it. But yeah, Mazer was a miniature I had, and I was like, okay, I'm going to play this character. This is who he is. I'm going to build the character around this. And I think it helps. It keeps me from min-maxing, because, all right, maybe it would be superior for Mazer to have this thing, but the mini has these, so this is what he's got to a degree. And it's just an easy way to come up with one. So yeah, I do that quite a lot. The character that I play in the game with Locknitu Andrea is that way as well, as I found a mini, and I thought, this is an awesome miniature. I want to play this character. And so when we started up that campaign, it was excellent opportunity. Let's do it.
So the other question is the inspiration behind Eris? Is that something you discussed, or is it open for discussion?
Yeah, I think I have discussed a little bit on the Discord that Eris is in several ways, at least a little bit inspired by my daughter, mainly in her appearance, because I was kind of trying to figure out what Eris looked like, and I was building the character, and Rose was hanging around while I was doing that, because she's really interested in this and likes playing RPGs when she gets the opportunity. And so it was things like Rose really liked the idea of the side buzzed asymmetrical haircut at the time. And so Eris has an undercut that's laid asymmetrically over, and Rose thinks like the idea of blue hair is still very high on Rose's list of awesome. Although I think she's starting to work out that it would be very hard to get her blonde hair to go blue without it going green. But that idea, and that's where Eris's blue hair came from. And Eris's whole outfit, as initially described, was things that I could have found in Rose's closet, with a little bit of the particular decoration of them being distinct. But yeah, so yeah, Eris is primarily in her appearance, inspired by my daughter. Her personality is very different, but the way that she looks and little aspects of her, I've definitely used. Being a young character, aspects of having a daughter have certainly played a role in creating her. But yeah, her appearance does derive very heavily from Rose. Yeah. Our last question. From Laura. This is a wild throwback, but in Casey's intro video, she said she got her students to wear costumes. And if that's something she can share, I'm very curious about this. I don't remember this either. Were you able to remember what this was?
I went back and watched that video.
I mean, it can only be the one thing, right?
It has to be. It absolutely is us talking about HSE.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Which, what a great panel on Khyber Shards Answers to have her ask that question.
Right.
So, Philip, do you want to talk about it?
Sure.
This is at least half of us.
I did Model UN in high school, and I took students to Model UN when I became a teacher. And one of the Model UNs we went to, I'm sorry, guys, it was at the University of Texas.
Well, yeah,
Casey and I are Aggies.
This isn't heading in like a positive direction anyway. So.
One of them did these things that were called crisis committees, where they would present a historical crisis, and the students took on roles and tried to solve them. And so you had a bunch of committees, and some of them were an actual UN committee and a realistic topic like water resources. And that's a really important problem in the world. And it's really, but yeah, if you're a high schooler,
What?
that's not super exciting. I mean, it's not super exciting even if you're an adult, however important it may be. Or you can be a part of the Politburo of the Soviet Union in the last days of the Cold War and see if you can prevent the Soviet Union from dissolving, or you can be in the National Assembly during the French Revolution, or you can be, I think the first one I took kids to was the Atlantic City Conference of the various organized crime families during Prohibition, and they were working out what they were going to do about Prohibition. And so they sat in a room and they plotted out a gigantic bootlegging network. And
That's awesome.
at various points, the college students who were running it would insert problems. And after going to a couple of them and being kind of unhappy with the way that they tended to wrap them up, like we did one where they were samurai warlords, and they brought it to a conclusion by someone walking in and informing them that Godzilla had arrived and killed them all. Which was really funny, but the students didn't love it. Or our students didn't love it. I was talking with our headmaster on the way back and said, I think we could do that. And so we started doing it. And Casey helped on the very first one, and RA joined soon after.
Second one.
And we've been basically running giant role-playing scenarios for a few years now for our students. It has alternated as to exactly how elaborate it is. But yeah, we definitely this past year had a bunch of students dress up as Vikings and try to conquer England.
And when we run the pirates one, we always get a bunch of students that dress up as their pirates.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think at least in one I ran, I don't know how often we've done this, but I told them unequivocally, if you anyone who dresses up will get a little advantage to begin with, and all of them did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as it's evolved, when we started it, it was very much like Model UN, come dressed formally. And as it's evolved, it's kind of become a little more casual with a strong encouragement on if you can dress like your character, you should. And that has been a lot of fun to see. But I
think across the board, though, it has shifted from very formal to the closer you can act and get and be your character.
Yeah.
And I think the kids have really embraced that. They do a lot of research to play that historical character accurately.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
that has been fun.
The Viking one, I was really shocked at how thoroughly kids got into trying to come up with names for their characters, because we didn't give them actual historical figures. We divided them into different cultural groups that were vying for control of England, and they came up with their own characters, and they all came in with a period appropriate, culturally appropriate character name that they had dug up on the internet, which was cool. And a lot of them came in costume, as mentioned. It's a great very interactive learning experience and a lot of fun.
It is a great fun. I mean, we could
Yeah.
probably talk for an entire episode on the...
Which we probably should talk soon, huh?
Yeah, we should probably work on that. It's like not that long till February, is it? Okay.
No.
That's true.
Why did you say that?
Because none of us have thought of it yet.
But remember how fun it is? We have a lot of fun.
It's super fun.
And the kids do
Super fun.
too.
Yes. All right. Well, that is all of our questions. And in 3 minutes, I'm supposed to run a game for our patrons. So that sounds like an excellent opportunity for us to wrap up this episode of Khyber Shards Answers.
Improv night.
What?
Improv night.
Yeah. I'm willing to bet that they're going to spend the night plotting their next move. So I'm probably safe. Thank you so much, Casey and RA, for joining and answering questions. And thank you for being flexible in playing gladiators. And thank you all for watching. Who's your favorite PC? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear about it. You can also find down below a link to our Discord where we take questions for Khyber Shards Answers, although you are also more than welcome to put your questions in the comments below. I do go back and check for questions. You'll also find links to all of our various social media down there. New episode of Khyber Shards dropping Monday, the conclusion of the Red Ring adventure. So please join us then, and next week we should...
Nothing interesting happens.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It's very calm.
Very straightforward.
Yeah. The skeletons that are clawing out of the ground are friendly, as it turns out. Everyone sits down and has tea. And then next week on Khyber Shards Answers, we should hopefully be able to have Mia on to answer questions about Nardali and her first D&D experience here on Khyber Shards with us. So
She was amazing.
She really was. It was great. So please give us questions to ask Mia, and we'll look forward to that for next week. In the meantime, this has been Khyber Shards, and thanks for rolling with us.